Mr. Agnew has the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I support what Jim Nicholson said to the American Secretary of State for Agriculture, and I've got 7 quick points. It's mainly about poultry meat. The first is legal certainty. In Britain, our standards for our poultry producers have to be enforced by law. It's different in the US. It's a matter of negotiation between the producer and the customer. In this scenario, it would be quite easy for processors in Britain to undermine the the producer. The next is equivalence. You mentioned this, but we're not at all convinced in Britain that American standards in terms of health and welfare are as good as British standards. Could you comment on this? Do you agree or disagree? Third is antibiotics. A lot of antibiotics used in US intensive livestock. We don't like using them on a general basis. Can you comment on antibiotic use? Chemicals. In Britain, we don't accept that chemical decontamination of carcasses is either necessary or acceptable, particularly in the idea of a farm-to-fork approach. Free-range eggs. The definition of a free-range egg in Britain is it must have a brown shell and it must not be washed. In America, the definition is it must have a white shell and it must be washed. Who's going to win this battle? Because if you win, our free-range egg sector is going to be massively undermined. Do you feed pig swill in the United States? You talked about waste. Does that go into animal feed rations? It used to in Britain, but it's not allowed anymore. Similar, abattoir waste, meat and bone meal, mammalian protein fed back to mammals. Does that occur in the United States or not? Thank you.
Look, there are a number of issues relative to products that are produced in the U.S. using different methods, and I understand that some folks are not interested in having hormone beef. I understand that some folks aren't interested in some of the pathogen reduction treatments that are used in the U.S. on poultry. I guess our position on this, and I don't expect anybody necessarily to agree with this today, but our position on this is that consumers are pretty wily, consumers are pretty smart, consumers know what they want, and they can make the right choice. And frankly, if a market is open and I attempt to sell something that no consumer in the European Union wants to buy, I suspect I will probably do one of two things. I will probably stop trying to sell it in the market, or I will change my product. That's the evolution and the nature of markets. And so to our way of thinking, it's better for the consumer to make the choice than it is necessarily for the government to make the choice. That does require a level of transparency. It does require providing information to consumers so they can make an informed choice. And therein, I think we have an area of conversation and discussion of what does that look like, how can we convey enough information to producers or to consumers to allow them to make a choice. Let me just try to summarize a couple other issues. And there was a question about, or an issue raised about antimicrobial resistance, and that's a very important question. And we are in the process of developing a system in which we're reducing significantly the level of antibiotics being used in livestock. We are now working with our veterinarians for the judicious use of antibiotics, not using them as growth promotion, but as a treatment of disease and illness in animals. We are researching to basically understand how this resistance develops. And we are making a concerted effort between the medical doctors and our animal doctors so that we have a One Health approach to this. We recognize this is an issue. We recognize it's a problem, and we're trying to address it fairly aggressively. The President has signed an executive order directing his departments to work collaboratively, and we are working with our Health and Human Services Department to do so. The free-range issue, there's got to be a way to figure that out in a way that producers who want brown eggs can get the brown eggs, and the producers who are comfortable with white eggs can get the white eggs. There needs to be a way to do this, and it's just a matter of us sitting down and figuring it out. So